Socrates was a philosopher in ancient Athens. And when I say philosopher, I don't just mean any old philosopher. Socrates was a real heavyweight. It's no exaggeration to say that he changed the face of philosophy forever, which is why philosophers now make the distinction between pre- and post-Socratic schools. Plato was his student, and it's through Plato and his dialogues that we know about Socrates and his method of guiding people to truth through a technique of asking questions that we now call Socratic dialogue. The process is much more simple than many people think. In order for any of us to believe something that is false, we first need to make a point of ignoring contrary evidence. We all do this by filtering out information that doesn't fit our preconceptions. In the book 1984, George Orwell called the process doublethink, which he described as the ability to hold two contradictory ideas in our heads at the same time and agree with them both. We do this by focusing only upon one idea at a time. I remember when my extended family first came together, I found myself in a situation as father and stepfather to 3 small children, 2 boys and 1 girl. At the time, I held 2 contradictory beliefs. The first, I'm a fair-minded person. The second, my little girl, my biological daughter, could do no wrong. That became a problem because, of course, as these 3 young children started to come together, arguments would ensue, and from time to time they'd come to me as the arbiter, the judge, the person who decides who's in the right and who's in the wrong. And without really realizing that this is what I was doing, I tended to come down unfairly on the side of my daughter much more often than I really ought to have. That's because I looked at only one of these 2 beliefs, which is my little girl can do no wrong, and conveniently ignored the second idea, which is I'm a fair-minded person. It took my partner, Jill, to get me to understand what was going on, and she did so by getting me to look at both beliefs at the same time. She brought them together in a conversation about, first of all, if I remember rightly, how nobody's perfect, we're all fallible, children make mistakes, all children make mistakes, sometimes because children are egocentric by definition, they tend to be unfair, and then she got me to look at my other belief at the same time, which is the belief that I'm a fair person. In doing so, making me look at both beliefs together, she made me understand that both could not be true. And when you do that with conflicting beliefs, one belief or the other has to give. Now, I have a slightly different, a modified belief, which is that I am a fair-minded person, which I really am, but I have a blind spot, a weakness, and I need to be aware of it and look out for it. That allows me to find a much more reasonable balance. So the way to discuss potentially false beliefs with a client or anyone else, because we're all just people, without damaging rapport is actually relatively straightforward. We get them to think about what they already understand. So begin by making it clear that you respect the client's opinion or their right to their opinion, and you genuinely don't know if they're right or wrong. Ask for their permission to explore the evidence. You'll almost always get it. If you don't get it, don't even try. They're not ready to hear it. Get them to tell you what they believe and the evidence that supports that belief. Identify the principle beneath the belief. Ask them about another situation in which the evidence conflicts with the principle. Never ask them to admit that they're wrong. This is the equivalent of asking them to humiliate themselves in front of you, and will seriously damage the rapport that exists between you. Acknowledge that you still don't quite get it, but explain that you respect their right to their point of view anyway, even if you don't agree with it. And then wait for the client to change their mind. They may never admit it to you, but their actions will show that they've changed. And remember, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. The golden rule here is never, ever try to checkmate the other person. Never try to beat them into submission and make them agree that you were right and they were wrong. As Rudyard Kipling put it, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. If you try to force someone into a corner, you simply make them more entrenched in their original belief. Rather, wait for them to change their mind on their own, and then, if it ever comes up in conversation, give them the credit for having thought it through. It's nothing to do with your Socratic intervention. Socratic questions are used to help people connect information from one part of their experience with another. Socratic questions should be easy for the client to answer. They must know the information. Socratic questions build step by step upon information the client already knows. Socratic questions are used to bring to light examples which do not fit the client's beliefs about the current situation or problem. Socratic questions are used to help people re-evaluate their situation or problem. Socratic questions are very different from information giving. Socratic questions are often open-ended, although not always. Socratic dialogue typically includes lots of summaries to make sure that both client and therapist are on the right track. Socratic dialogue typically ends with the therapist asking the client how the new information affects the way they think about the situation at hand. Never try to win by checkmating the other person. The aim is to get them to reconsider, not to humiliate themselves at the altar of your wisdom. I'm Stuart Sorensen. You can find me at www.mindthecaretraining.com. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful or helpful in any way, do please share it around. And while you're at it, if you click the little character icon that's in the middle of your screen right now, you can subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you did. Thank you for watching.